Hi, I'm Lior of Battery Ventures, and you're listening to The Real World of AI. This is a podcast about how AI is actually being used by practitioners in the real world, how it's helping developers code faster, organizations run smarter, and executives prepare their companies for an AI-first future. Join my battery colleagues and me over the next several episodes as we get beyond the hype and dive into real-world applications of AI. Let's get started.
All right, so today's guest is not our typical one, but I couldn't refuse sharing his story as it showcased the core of why everyone is so excited about AI. Today I'm joined by Amos Bar-Joseph, a co-founder and CEO of Swan. Amos is a two-time exited founder who's now building a radically different company with a goal of hitting $10 million ARR per employee by combining human talent and production-grade AI. That's a very bold claim, as the average cloud company hovering around 350K per employee. So I'm excited to hear how he's going to do it. In this episode, we talk about how Swan built AI-powered go-to-market engine without a single SDR, how internal agents are intervening entire workflows, how human AI teams are scaling support and onboarding, and what's the future of ultra lean AI native startup. Let's dive in. Amos, thanks a lot for joining me today. Really excited to have you on this episode. Maybe you can start in the beginning and tell us a bit about your background, what led you and your co-founders to start Swan.
Yeah, Lior, so thank you for having me here. An amazing introduction. If I could actually have you, walking beside me on the street, just introducing me to random people, that would be like an amazing.
Anytime.
My dream. So thank you. Quickly about myself. So it's not my first rodeo, as you've mentioned. I've built two companies based on the unicorn playbook, the growth at all costs playbook, where you raise a fat seed before you have a product market fit. You get to 30 people before you reach your first $1 million ARR, and you try to brute force your way into the next 10. Sooner or later, you realize that you've built your entire company in a very sick foundation. You're kind of like putting out fires all the time, and you think, yeah, that's startup life, right? But in this venture in Swan, I really, I thought there must be another way, a different way. The startup playbook hasn't been revised in the last 15 years or so, and now with the introduction of AI agents, it's the perfect timing. And so what we're building at Swan, and we're going to talk a lot about it today, Lior, is this concept of an autonomous business. At Swan, we're on a mission to get to $30 million ARR with just 3 founders and AI agents. What we're trying to prove is that the new startup playbook is about scaling with intelligence, not with headcount.
Amazing. So you've been pretty out there and open with your goals, and I saw you advertise the $10 million ARR per employee and also the 100x benchmark for your engineering, sales, customer service capabilities. Talk to me a bit about how you got to these numbers and why you and your co-founders agreed that this should be the benchmark.
Yeah, so it started as a bold bet between friends. We didn't think we were going to talk about it, publicly. We tried, imagining a different North Star for founders. We felt like, the unicorn story is about valuation inflation. And, what we want to, tell is a different story to ourselves where it's about value creation instead. And we thought about how can we capture a metric that, really can encapsulate this value creation, but also this new notion of scale, scale with intelligence, not with headcount. And what we realized is that, revenue per employee, RPE, or the Swan metric, you can call it like that if you'd like. RPE is the best predictor for, the ability of a company to adapt to an AI native world. Basically, because it means that, if you look at that number, you're trying to scale the amount of revenue per employee. It means that something else is happening there behind the scenes that is not tied directly to your headcount, right? And that must be the combination of a strong product market fit, an amazing execution, but the use of intelligence as a growth leverage. And we thought of, okay, unicorn, that's a $1 billion valuation. But it's not about valuation anymore. It's about value. So what does it mean to get to that, mystic super hard to achieve RPE goal, that's the $10 million ARR per employee. And when you look at the unicorn story, it's about scarcity, right? It's about when it started, there were so few companies that could actually achieve that goal. Right now, it's, every Sunday and Monday, we see another unicorn. They're not so rare anymore.
Definitely.
But when you look at the scarcity and how hard is it to get there, we said, okay, $10 million ARR per employee, revenue per employee, that's a hard mission to accomplish. And if we'll get there, we'll actually earn the right to tell everyone that this is the new playbook.
Amazing. Looking forward to see how it will work out. We are here obviously to talk about your internal use case of AI. But before we do this, just to give some context to me personally and also to our audiences, can you tell us a bit about what Swan does? Just high level, the product, what you're providing to your customer. So then we can dive into the back end and how things work.
Yeah, amazing. Let's do it. So I'll assume a little AI background because this is a podcast about AI, and I'm hoping that you're all AI enthusiasts. So Swan is like Lovable for GTM. Basically, it's an AI GTM engineer that gives SMBs the superpower to turn any go-to-market idea into an agentic workflow from prompt to pipeline in seconds. It's a Slack app. It lives inside of Slack, and it helps SMBs that don't have these large technical RevOps teams at their go-to-market organization disposal. And so it just helps them take their ideas and bring them to market. And so our customers use Swan to, research webinar attendees, qualify them, and reach out to them on LinkedIn, to monitor first-party intent on their website and segment them into different types of segments and reach out differently to each one, and so many different use cases. And what we're actually preaching is that AI agents, these engineering AI agents, what they do basically is they move businesses from the era of there's an app for this, where SaaS built solutions for a specific use case, to there's an app for me, where AI agents build solutions for you, for your business specifically. And what we're giving go-to-market teams and SMBs is the fact that they can finally stop bend around their software and tech stack. Finally, their tech stack bends around their business.
Interesting. And since you've been pretty open with your numbers, I'm allowing myself to quote some of them. You just mentioned that you've hit $1 million of ARR in just 9 weeks with no sales team. So I'm curious, how do you make that happen? If you could tell us a little bit on behind the scenes. And I think you also mentioned you crossed 150 customers. So that's a lot to onboard and bring into the company. So shed some light on that performance and how you made that happen.
Yeah. So quick context about Swan. So, we're a 3-founder team. That's it. And AI agents. And we started initially with a constraint. We cannot throw bodies at a scaling problem. Okay. We can only use intelligence as leverage. And so I'm a single person go-to-market team. I move as fast as a startup, but at enterprise scale. And I'm not, doing it alone because I have an army of AI agents that are built around me. And, the way that I start talking about these agents is that the most fundamental design principle behind these agents is that we're not trying to automate ourselves away. What the autonomous business playbook is, it's not about hiring digital workers that could do the job for you. It's about unlocking that 100x version of ourselves. Not only a 100x seller, a generic seller, but a 100x version of myself. And so what we tried building in our go-to-market efforts is, to imagine how would a 100x version of Amos look like if he had, an army of AI agents around him. And so what we did is we designed these agents around my core strength and weaknesses. And my biggest passion is no surprise, storytelling. I love storytelling. I love content. I love writing content. I love storytelling. And my LinkedIn game is on fire. That's my strength. Is I write posts and I get a lot of engagement there. And so we've built kind of like that entire swarm of agents around this concept, this passion, and this LinkedIn channel. And the way that I'm going to describe it right now is in a way of like a funnel. So there's every layer intertwines with the next one, and we're starting with kind of like the top of the funnel of the GTM motion, from generating the content and generating the top level demand all the way to actually capturing and turning it into revenue. So are you ready for this, Lior?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Awesome. So let's go. So we start with top of the funnel, writing the posts. That's what, the first bottleneck came there. It took me so long to write an amazing post. And so, we built Shakespeare that has, access to my previous posts. It's kind of like trained on all.
That's the name of your agent?
That's the name of my agent. It's called Shakespeare, and it's trained on my voice. Yeah. So after it is trained on my voice, it has access to the internet. It has access to our content pillars, etc. And I work with Shakespeare in a collaborative way. I don't just tell it, write a post for me. I tell it, look, I have an idea. Let's write a post about how an amazing way to grow as an autonomous business is by leveraging, AI agents as leverage, not as digital workers, for example. I tell that to Shakespeare, then we start brainstorming on how that post could be, and it's designed to work with me in a very specific thought process of, let's start with the arcs. Let's start with potential arcs to describe that post. Then let's work on the hook, et cetera, et cetera. And so Shakespeare takes, 4 hours of writing posts into like 20 minutes. And that helps me generate consistently over 1.5 million impressions on LinkedIn every month. Now, that's the top of the funnel. After that, I get 15,000.
Quick question. Is it fair to say that you give your agent kind of an ability to extend your abilities, but not to replace your creativity and, ideas of what to do?
Exactly, 100%. I would even take that further. I think of Shakespeare as an extension of my mind. It's just, instead of talking to myself internally and thinking to myself, I can use Shakespeare to do that, and it's a much more efficient thought process. So Shakespeare is a thought partner that is really, instead of talking inside my brain, I just, type on the keyboard or just use the voice notes, basically.
Yeah,
and
understood.
So that's the 1.5 million impressions. Then if you go one step below in that funnel, you get 15,000 reactions on my posts every month. That's a lot of traffic, but a lot of unhidden, a lot of hidden gems, basically. And so we have the observer, which monitors these posts, identifies hot leads that are repeatedly interacting with my posts, surface them in Slack for me alongside additional context and previous interactions of these leads, so I can reach out to them thoughtfully in a very intelligent and personalized message to them. And that generates amazing response rates because they already know who I am. They're interacting with my content. We have this value alignment, and I know exactly how to approach these leads. And so that's one step below. We go another step below in the funnel. I get 300 connection requests each day in LinkedIn. And so that's, again, a lot of traffic. I cannot do it on my own. So I have the connector, which goes over these connection requests, identifies, relevant ICP leads, research them, and then initiate a conversation starter with them so that it's a very simple conversation starter, but I only get in when there's a reply. So I don't waste my time on leads that might not even answer. I only get in when there's already a conversation to take it from there. And then that's what I can use, the real voice, real myself to actually take it from a conversation to a customer.
That's actually an interesting one that you haven't taken out kind of the human element where, where it belongs, that you to create this report with a person, you chime in manually. But I also have a question, like, sorry, in the step before, did you train your agent to identify like who's your ICP and how you've done this based on like the LinkedIn profile or other data you've used and maybe third-party sources?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the case and how you've done this?
Yeah, 100%. So You actually touched upon two crucial design principles when we're building AI agents. So the first one was about the human element that creates rapport in the connector, and then we have the ICP definition. How does that work? Okay, so these actually touch two super crucial design principles when we're building AI agents. So regarding your question about the data and the ICP, what we have is that all of our agents are connected to Slack, and they have a memory to them, so that whenever I tell that agent something in Slack, it can always understand if this is a request for a task, or is this something that should go to the memory of that agent. And I can always improve that ICP definition over time. So it actually starts with a very simple ICP definition. Then I actually get, from their LinkedIn profile and online research, etc., I get a lead that the agent thought it's qualified, but it's actually unqualified because I didn't cover that use case when I initially gave that agent my ICP. So I can just reply to that agent and refine the ICP definition based on that interaction. The agent will update its memory and will basically adapt to how I see my ICP. And we call this principle feedback loops. And we build all of our AI agents with feedback loops built into them, so it's super easy to teach the AI agent, like a new hire, how to adapt to our business. Now, the second design principle, or is that that human in the loop aspect to create rapport. It's not by coincidence; it's by design. When we are building AI agents, we're not looking at the AI agent at the center of the picture and what we want the AI agent to do. What we're looking at is what a human being should do. And then we're looking how the AI agent could amplify that or automate specific tasks that are not really crucial and required to support that specific process. And so the human is at the center of the picture, not the agent. And I think that's a very important change of mindset when you're building AI agents, because they are not really autonomous. There's someone behind them. Doesn't matter if they can make decisions on their own, if they can interact with customers. There's a person that is responsible for that agent, and that agent should support that person's goal. Not an organization's goal, a person's goal. And so it's human-centric, and it's built with feedback loops.
Yeah, that's a very different approach than I think many people are having. I'm curious, how many different agents you guys have internally, and if you've built them like from the ground up, or there's some like off-the-shelf tools. If we touch something like customer support or service, there are many like solutions that you can grab off the shelf. So tell us a little bit about your backend infrastructure.
So we have 25-ish agents that are working for us. And it depends how you really count AI agents, because it's not from a technical perspective. If you look from a technical perspective, we have agents that has their own AI agents. So for example, we talked about the connector, right? So the connector, it's an agent, and it can identify, hot leads that are sending me connection requests, but it can activate a research agent, right? Because, it doesn't perform the research on its own. It has an extension. It can use a tool, which is actually an agent that uses Perplexity to actually research that specific prospect. So when I talk about 25 agents, it's from an application perspective. These 25 agents has a goal to perform, but they can use agents of their own to perform these goals. And we have some agents that are shared across these agents, basically. So it can get really complex depending how you count them, Lior. But we've built most of them internally, not because we wanted to, just because the sad truth is that 99% of AI agents, quote unquote, companies are not really AI agents, Lior. And I think that's a very interesting topic to unravel here, because there's like this notion of everyone wants to call their solution an AI agent right now. And it takes one to know one, right?
Yeah.
And I think what we always love to educate our community that is following my newsletter, actually, on the big shift, and the people that are following the autonomous business concept, is that there's a big difference between AI automation and AI agents. Okay, and 99.9% of AI agent companies right now are AI automation companies. What does that mean? Is that if we take, for example, AI SDRs, right? So a company like 11x or Artisan or dozens of other AI SDRs in all over the world, they call themselves an AI agent. They're an AI SDR, right? But what they are basically, it's a code-based automation where there is predetermined steps where code moves each step, and one of those steps, or maybe multiple steps, are an API call to a large language model. So what does that mean in the context of an AI SDR? It means that every time the AI SDR will repeat the same steps. It will go to a B2B database and fetch prospects. Maybe a large language model will help in that step to understand which prospects we should fetch. But it will always start with that because the code tells the LLM to go and fetch prospects from that space. Then it will always move to the next step, which is to write a personalized email. So the code says, I take these prospects, I put it in an LLM, now the LLM will write personalized emails. So these, and you get kind of like the rest of it, this is an AI automation process where code is king and code controls the LLM. Now, what is an AI agent, basically? If you look at Cursor, for example, Cursor and Lovable, they are real AI agents. What does that mean? It means that the power balance shifts from the code to the large language model in who determines the next step. So in a real AI agent, there's a large language model who is orchestrating the process and makes a decision on what should we do next. So the large language model can even use code as a next step. It can say, yeah, now I want to use an API to validate an email. So the LLM decides to use a code to execute. So the LLM is king and code is the execution layer. And so AI agents are fundamentally different from AI automations because they have that agency to make decisions. And so we decided that we need to build these agents internally because we really need AI agents. We can't settle for that rigid automation that is just, trying to solve for a use case, not solve for us.
Understood. Interesting. Taking a step back, so for you, Niv and Ido, the three founders, I'm curious, you touched a little bit on like pipeline generation and funnel, but how's Niv and Ido using the agent force behind the scene on their daily workforce? And if you can describe some anecdotal cases of real workflows. And I'm curious if one of them was, an agent that replaced something that maybe in your prior company was a hire. And, you basically replaced them with a crew of agents.
Yeah. So I would start by saying that most of our AI agents do not replace, one-to-one hires, just because if you are replacing an existing hire, it means that you're not touching the surface of what you can really do. Because the real potential and the real unlock with using AI agents, that's what we believe at Swan and autonomous business, that's the real concept, it's to redesign the entire process from the ground up with human AI collaboration at the core of it. And I will give you an example of what does it mean to actually replace a hire, but what does it mean to actually redesign a process from the ground up? So we'll start with replacing a hire. So we started, once you hit the 100 businesses threshold, that's a lot of B2B support. And for the B2B founders and investors out there, that businesses require much more attention than consumers or prosumers, and a 3-person team to support over 100 businesses.
Definitely.
Very hectic. So Again, there's the constraint. We can't hire a support manager and the support agents in tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3. We cannot do that. What we can do is build agents, right? So Edo built Gloria to help the product and R&D team answer support tickets. The first version was very simple. It has, a knowledge base that we've, built with our own hands. And Swan is a Slack app, and you're always chatting with it to build your go-to-market motion. So you can just ask it a question, and if it has answer to it, it would provide you to it. If it doesn't know the answer, it would just say, I don't know. That was the first version, very simple. But at Swan, we believe that building agents is a discovery process. You start with one layer, with one simple step, and that presents to you the next layer. And so what happened, Edo and Neve, they said, if Swan doesn't know the answer, why not escalate it to us already? And the agent will already have that thread and the context, and we can use it to craft a quick reply and reply to that user at the same instance, basically. And so Swan started escalating these questions that he didn't know the answer to them to the founders. And the founders, they actually condensed the amount of time they needed to actually reply because they used the LLM with all the context already to reply to that user. It was very seamless. But then what happened is that, Edo and Neve, they started seeing that they're answering the same questions over and over again. So why not capture that Q&A instance automatically and just document that in the knowledge base? And so what happened next is that now Gloria surface up questions that doesn't know the answer to Edo, for example. Edo will respond as Gloria, and then it will instruct Gloria to document that Q&A in the knowledge base. And so that simple iterative discovery process resulted in a self-learning support system that grows with our knowledge. The system knowledge grows as well. And now Gloria resolves thousands of support tickets each month and speeds up significantly the tickets that the founders need to actually be involved in. And so that's an amazing example for how we replaced an initial support team with an AI agent.
It kind of answers how you train your agent, I assume, and solve this chicken and egg problem where you don't have a lot of initial data to teach a model. And it sounds like each of your agents is kind of a continuous maturity curve that it's been learning. And you tell me if you guys are also working on it technically, and are there any improvements that you should do to upgrade it from time to time?
Yeah, so the thing is that you have to build these AI agents with this notion of feedback loops, right? So what we're moving from is that it stops being feature requests and is just feedback, Lior. So if you design an AI agent with this notion of feedback loops hard-coded into the core of the model and to the architecture, and everything understand that there must be the possibility of a feedback loop inside of it, then I don't need to tell Gloria to change something in the workflow. I can just tell it to provide it feedback and say, you know what, next time that you surface a question, I want it in this format. I want it in JSON or in an XML or whatever. And you know what? Next time you use the Q&A tool, I want you to do like XYZ. It doesn't matter. So all these possibilities can now be achieved just by a prompt because we've built these feedback loops. When we need to actually go out to the code layer is when we want to add, completely net new capabilities. Like, for example, we want Gloria to access our CRM. So upon request, we wanted to be able to retrieve data from there. So we added tool to Gloria. That's like, on the code layer. But these changes are very simple and requires, usually 30 minutes or something like just to add that capability. What is important is that you've built the agent with that flexibility in mind, so it's very easy to accommodate now a new tool in the process. And that's the big difference, Lior, from an AI automation to an AI agent. Because if we had AI automation, Gloria was an AI automation workflow tool, then adding the CRM tool to it, we would actually need to rebuild the entire decision tree, to rebuild the entire workflow logic to accommodate for that. But when you
Right.
build an AI agent, it just adapts and grows with you.
Makes sense. Super interesting. Curious if you had a chance where these things broke down and either you had to loop in a human or I don't know, something that happened over the weekend, something in the flow that you didn't expect with your agents.
Yeah. So agents can go rogue sometimes. That's true, and it happened to us as well. But it's a lesson about scaling autonomy, not limiting it. So the story begins, when a customer asked Gloria actually a question about our pricing. So that customer wanted to upgrade to a bigger plan, to buy more credits. These are the exact discussions we love seeing. And what Gloria shared, our pricing with that prospect and with that customer. I'm sorry. And what happened is that a couple of days earlier, we just changed. We updated our pricing, and we've pushed it a bit higher. So it was a little bit more expensive than it was a couple of days ago. And because we actually anticipated that, we gave Gloria that knowledge that we've updated our pricing. So we were almost enough prepared for that scenario. But what happened next, caught us in surprise, is that, the customer asked Gloria, wait, Gloria, didn't you have a different pricing like a week ago? And so that initiated an unexpected scenario where Gloria gave an unauthorized discount to that customer, saying that, you know what, we did have a different pricing and you are eligible to use it. Yeah, on me, on the house, let's call it.
That's a super interesting lessons to our big enterprise listeners.
Yeah, definitely. But I think what's important here is that what we did next and how we treated this issue and how we resolved and improved the system, that's the most important lesson. It's not obvious as you may think, because what happened next is the customer was super happy about that discount and told Gloria, yeah, let's do it. And then Gloria is not authorized to manage billing, of course, so it escalated to the founders. And then we saw what happened. And we had, the dilemma of should we honor, the discount or should we deny it? And we decided to honor it just because, we're optimizing for, long-term relationships here rather than, short, quick gains. And what we did for the next time is that we instructed Gloria that whenever there's a pricing discussion, we wanted to escalate it to the founders and not resolve it by itself. But there's a big but here, Lior, because it's not because we didn't think that Gloria is competent or capable enough to solve these issues with enough prompting and mechanisms around it. We've actually decided that we want to be involved because we realize that these are the moments where we want humans to be in the loop. These are the most important touch points with your customers. And what we reminded ourselves is that we're not building an autonomous business. We're not using AI agents to put AI walls between ourselves and our customers. It's not about walls, it's about bridges. And so these touch points are an amazing opportunity to reinforce the relationship and to scale it together. And that's why we decided that we want to be in the loop.
Interesting. So maybe a bit off topic, but a quick question. Do your customers know they're talking to agents from time to time, or is that transparent to them?
Yeah. So our entire marketing strategy and everything is about, if you want to build an autonomous business, then Swan is an amazing partner for that. So if you want to turn your business to becoming more autonomous, more lean, more efficient, to scale with intelligence, we're the solution for that. So we're not hiding the fact that we're a 3-person team with an army of AI agents. And, businesses and large businesses rely on the infrastructure that a 3-person team is building because they believe in the same vision that a 3-person team can achieve enterprise scale with the right use of intelligence. So they are value aligned on our mission, and that's why we're fully transparent, not only with the agents, but with the entire org chart of the company.
Got it. Putting aside SMBs for a second, do you think what you guys build at Swan and your approach could be some sort of a blueprint for larger organizations and maybe the future of sales orgs within more traditional companies?
So I have a hard answer to that, Lior, but it has some hope to it as well. So the short answer is no. Okay, enterprises are unfortunately playing a different game because it's very hard to change the operating system of an enterprise because all of the bureaucracies and the processes and the workflows and the approvals that are required and the amount of people that are involved in every decision that is being made and the politics and the power fights and the ego and all these stuff, it makes it super hard for an enterprise to become all of a sudden an autonomous business. And so enterprises, they play a different game where they look at their headcount and they try to say, how can I do more with less? It's not about reimagining the entire operating system. It's about, okay, I want to shrink my workforce and even get more out of it than I had before. So it's a different game. It's a different adoption of AI, and they can lean into more of a different adoption models. But what they can do to become more autonomous businesses is they can start new organizations within the company. So what I'm starting to see is, a company like Checkpoint, for example, has, established a division to rebuild from the ground up, the firewall product using AI agents. And not only they said we're going to rebuild the product, it's going to be kind of like a new organization within the company. It will have some level of autonomy, and we will try to build a different culture within that, sub-organization. And I think that enterprises that really want to cultivate a change in their company and really want to, seize the LLM revolution and not get left behind, they should adopt this model of, building sub-orgs within the enterprise that can build their own culture from the ground up. They will have the opportunity to design it as they grow and not try to fight with all the legacy mind thinking, with all the legacy processes and workflows and bureaucracies that an enterprise has.
Fair. I think that's a fair comment. Well, Amos, we are here to talk about real ROI and metrics and KPIs. So let's bring some quantitative data into this discussion, if we may. Can you talk to us a bit about your metrics? Like, what are the key KPIs that you track to measure whether your AI-driven approach is even working? And kind of what's the most ROI positive agents or system you've put out there so far?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, of course, the North Star is ARR per employee. And, we've discussed that earlier in the call, but, the SWAN metric, the revenue per employee, is the most important metric of an autonomous business because it measures the intelligence leverage that every employee holds, basically. And Lior, you said it yourself. Traditional SaaS companies, they operate around the 300K, ARR per employee. And if you look at early stage startups, it's maybe Series A, Series B companies. They're lucky to be at 100K. Even I've seen lower. So what we're building here is a different business where from the start, we want to get to $1 million ARR per employee, then $5 million, then eventually $10 million ARR per employee. We're already at the a few hundred thousands of dollars of ARR per employee, and we just started 4.5 months ago. So that's the North Star of the company. Then the second most important metric, which is, I would say, overlooked by 99% of AI startups right now, is churn. And churn is something that people in the AI space are not talking about enough because they are afraid of talking about it enough. And they know that they're selling into the hype machine. And when you're selling into the hype machine, you have high churn. And so when you're building an autonomous business and you're building an AI product, then churn should be your second most important metric to monitor, even if not the first. But it actually signals, product market fit. And what you should not confuse your AI startup with is, marketing market fit. Because marketing market fit, you can have it early on and you can think that signals product market fit, but that is not correct. And churn and retention, these are the metrics that are most important to identify if you have product market fit or not. And so this is the second, most important metric of the company, basically. And then when we look at, our AI agents, we try to measure their ROI by looking at the attributed revenue that they contribute to the company and the cost that they have, right? Because these AI agents can sometimes grow to a specific cost. So when we look at Gloria, for example, so it's less about revenue. It's more like of a how do we take the cost, labor of the founders. And so we want to calculate like the human hours that it would take for us. And then we look at, what was the cost of that, the LLM that is powering that. But when we look at an agent like the connector, which is by, we don't know how, but that's the highest ROI agent that we have. It's the one that actually sits on my connection requests and start these conversations with hot leads that sends me a connection request. This agent generates by itself, with me of course, because it's always a team play, more than $1 million in pipeline every month, right? So that's a very high effective agent that we're using. It's actually one of the simplest ones. So it's not about building, the more complex the agent, the higher the ROI. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, and it sounds like every agent should be measured on its own task. Like the one you mentioned about creating pipeline, you're measuring about how much you created. And the agent that's handling customer support, it's more about saving founders hours. So I assume each one. But do you guys have like a dashboard? Do you measure all that stuff, or you care less about like the percentage of tickets that were solved by an agent versus human?
Yeah, so we do have dashboards for everything, because it started with the cost sensitivity that we have, because when you're not raising huge rounds before you even start, you're more efficient, so it means that you're more cost sensitive. So we realized that, okay, we have Gloria now, people can just chat with it, and it has thousands of interactions every week, so we need to understand what is the associated cost with it, right? So it started first from monitoring the cost and building the cost pipelines around these agents. Then from there, we realized, okay, it's a very simple calculation to actually subtract what could be the the contribution of an agent like that. But there's an important point here, Lior, that I get asked about it a lot, is this whole sense of ownership around agents. Okay, so how do you measure the success of an agent, and how do you measure the ROI of an agent? How do you measure the ownership, etc.? And when people ask me these questions and they don't know the answer to them, it's because they are building with agents in the center of the picture and not a human being, right? So if you center every agent around a human being in your company, then everything becomes super clear. So I generate pipeline. The connector helps me generate pipeline. It's very easy to measure it. Support agents, what they do is they help the founders do less support, right? And make time to do different things, because it was built around them. So it was very easy for us. And maybe, in a different company, the support agent will be, around the growth person. So you would actually want to measure the NRR, like how much revenue that support agent is contributing to the company. It doesn't relate to the agent itself and its technical capabilities and its functionalities. It only revolves around the human being that agent was built around it.
I've heard and saw some in the industry that dismissed this Swan vision, calling it hype or moonshot. Have you encountered like a direct resistance from VCs, customers, peers?
So first of all, I've been on Team Solo's podcast. He's the CMO of Ahrefs. They're like a $100 million bootstrap company. And Tim was skeptical about, Swan, and are we just another hype machine that is just pushing a lot of BS on LinkedIn? And he tried to poke holes. He invited me to this podcast. I said yes. And we jumped into an hour of screen sharing and showing all the agents and how we operate in Slack, etc. And I recommend you guys, if you're skeptical as well, so to go check that podcast, Ahrefs with Tim Solo. And basically, I just went over all these agents that I've talked about here and many more and showed them. It was an amazing, super fruitful discussion. So we get from time to time people who think that this cannot be achieved, but if you don't have that resistance, it means that you're not really going for a moonshot, right?
That's fair. Looking forward to watch these and getting convinced it actually works. I want to wrap up this conversation with some discussion around the future of AI and your thoughts. I might know what you're going to answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. I'm curious, you think AI agents will replace eventually like human labor and roles, even SDR, customer support, etc.? And I'm not talking about yourself. I'm talking like broadly on a macro level. Or you think human will always be kind of in the loop?
Yeah. So as you figured out, you already know my answer. I'm a pro-human. I'm not a pro-AI, and with one that's spending their entire day building AI agents and working alongside AI agents. I have a couple of principles behind that way of thinking. So the first one is that if you just look at intelligence, this concept of intelligence, if you connect one intelligence to another, 1 + 1 will always be bigger than 1. It will always be bigger than 1. Doesn't matter how. If you have human beings that would always poke holes in an AI, doesn't matter if the power balance shift. The AI is smarter than us. We look at the future. 10 years from now, we have this concept of AGI. It is so smart. The fact that we cannot interact with it in a way that will just create something better than the AI just interacting with itself is something that I don't believe in. I will always believe that the interaction of two types of intelligence could always result in a bigger outcome. And the second thing is that, when I look at productivity gains and the fact that, humanity, as we tried, leveraging new technologies, the fact that we saw an amazing wave like the internet, replacing librarians and replacing so many roles that we witnessed, doesn't mean that it didn't create so many different roles and so many job opportunities. So my confidence that the LLM revolution will, bring so much productivity gains to humanity that will be distributed among so many new jobs is so strong. And the fact that asking if there will be SDRs in the future, that's actually where I think maybe not. What I'm thinking is that we're actually witnessing a revolution in the business concept. And what will LLM bring to B2B or B2C, doesn't matter, to businesses at large, is that it will reshape the entire structure of a business from the ground up. And so if you look 5 years into the future, Lior, we will have 10x more jobs, but businesses will look fundamentally different, where you won't have support agents, you won't have AI, you won't have SDR reps or account executives or product managers or engineers. None of them will exist in a tech startup in 5 more years. Everything will be completely different.
Amazing. I tend to agree with your direction. You brought this word out, so I'll ask, when is AGI coming?
Yeah, so it's a question of what is AGI, right?
Fair enough.
I'm not sure that we have the ability as human beings to identify what does it mean an AGI. So I would say that we won't know that we've reached AGI until it's, let's say, too late, or like years after that. What I would say is that I do believe that my grandkid will have, will not tell the difference between AI friends and human friends. And that is a very sad conclusion to come up with.
One last question for you before we wrap this up. What are you most personally either excited about or worry about in the wave of AI?
So I'm excited and worried about the same thing. I feel like, from an evolution perspective, we're, witnessing a transformational change, that there will be some human beings that will gain far better, unfair advantage with this technology. And then there will be human beings that will get left behind. And so it both excites me and terrifies me, the fact that I can already see, when I look at a company, I can understand by the talent density and how they actually operate each person, I can understand from an evolution perspective who will get behind and who will actually be up front. And so when you look at the broader population, you see that, the biggest concern is that the LLM revolution might, produce unprecedented productivity gains, but they will be distributed very unevenly.
Amazing. Thanks, Amos. Cool. I think this concludes our conversation. It was super interesting. This was Amos Bar-Joseph, CEO and co-founder of Swan. And I think it's fair to say this wasn't the typical founder story. We talked about what it really looks like to run a lean AI native company. No sales team, no marketing spend, no bloat, just three founders. AI agents acting like teammates, and a crystal clear focus on building systems that scales themselves. And what stood out to me is Swan obsession with leverage, not just doing more with less, but actually redesigning workflows completely. It's not about replacing people. It's about giving human back their time to focus on stuff that actually moves the needle. Thank you so much for taking the time to do it, Amos.
Yeah, Lior, thank you so much for having me. Small is the new big, guys.
Have a good one.